Welcome to Turning Moments into Movements, where each week we explore simple but powerful wellbeing tips to help you live a balanced and fulfilling life. My name's Leanne Ross, your host and the founder and coach of my business, Happyluia, and I will be taking you through today's 15 minutes of insight and inspiration. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to this week's training. This training is going to be on the 5 ways to engage in self-care. Now, self-care tends to be a bit of a hot topic. It's a bit of almost a buzzword right now, buzz phrase, because there's been so much more focus around why self-care is important. We talk about mental health, we talk about burnout, we talk about general struggles that people experience. And there's so much research to suggest that self-care can really alleviate mental health struggles. It can really support, difficulties and challenges that we are going through in our everyday life. But how do we engage in self-care efficiently, and how do we do it in a way that's intentional and truly meaningful? And having explored this topic for many, many years, I have really spent so much time researching and trying to understand what that really ultimately looks like. And having done so, what I have found is self-care generally is broken up into 5 different areas. The first one is physical, second is social, then we've got mental, spiritual and emotional. And what I really love about breaking down self-care into these different areas is because it can serve us in different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 5 different areas, and then I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to stick to self-care as much as possible. I don't know about you, but certainly for me, I have spent so much time scheduling in self-care and then just cancelling it because something else has come up. Whether it's work, whether it's an errand that I need to run, self-care tends to be the first thing that goes within people's lives. So really giving yourself that chance to engage in self-care and ensuring that it is intentional and it is meaningful for your well-being and your mental health can really lead to powerful shifts in your everyday life. So let's just dive right in. So the first one I wanted to cover was physical. So how can you support your physical health through self-care? So what I really love about this one is it can be as versatile as you like. It can be, going to the gym. It can be playing a sport, but also can be walking. It can be taking a bath. It can be just getting more sleep. If you're feeling really tired, taking that time back and going to bed a little bit earlier. And if you can, waking up a little bit later. Whatever this looks like for you, I would really encourage you to write a list of things that you feel support your physical health. A really good example that I quite often practice is I love stretching. Stretching is so important for the body, especially if we are feeling quite stressed. We tend to hold lots of tension in our upper body, so our shoulders, our neck, sometimes our back as well, sometimes our jaw. So when we're holding on to a lot of tension through stress, our physical self-care is really, really required to ensure that that doesn't lead to long-term issues. So what I really love to do is every morning and every night is just to do some stretches. So, I incorporate a bit of yoga, I incorporate a bit of somatic workout, but something that's generally quite quick, quite easy, very relaxing, and it just really allows me to feel into my body and really recognise any aches and pains that I'm experiencing. Other ways is just to go out for a walk. Popping on some music through your headphones, providing it's safe to do so. Sometimes going for a walk with other friends. Sometimes going for a walk with no phone, no music, just listening to nature. So there's so many different ways that you can engage in physical self-care. So what I would encourage you to do is write down your 3 highest sort of your favourites, I guess, your 3 favourites of physical activity that you feel you can do. And if sleep is one of them, then so be it. I am such a huge fan of sleep. Sleep is so important for our well-being, so do not be shy to put that down if that is one of your top 3. The second one I wanted to cover was the social aspect. And what I find with social is it can go one or 2 ways. If we're really needing self-care and feeling a bit burnt out, if we're feeling stressed, if our mental health is, struggling, what we quite often find is we either completely disengage and spend lots of time on our own, or we go the other way and we're constantly out, we're constantly socialising, we're trying to make ourselves feel better by seeing people. And I would argue there's a place for both, but if you're really being intentional, really figuring out what you ultimately need in those moments where you are struggling and you do really feel that you need self-care. So reflecting first of all on the volume of social self-care that you really need. Do you need that bit of time on your own and you only maybe want to see, a couple of people during the week? Or is it a case of you do need to spend a bit more time getting yourself out there and spending time with people that you care about? What I would also encourage you to do is reflect on the people that you want to be around. Don't spend time, in my opinion, on people that bring you down. That's not going to be helpful for your self-care or your well-being or mental health. Spend time with people who really bring you joy, who you really enjoy spending time with. People that bring you laughter, people that you really feel good about when you are with them. And socialising can once again look differently as well. It can be a phone call, it can be a FaceTime, it can be face-to-face. You can go out and incorporate different self-cares by maybe going out for a walk, so incorporating your physical and your social self-care. So being as creative as you like with your social self-care, but really ensuring that you are being intuitive around what you truly need during these points. The next one I really want to focus on is the mental part of self-care. And this can really be closely linked to emotional self-care as well. But the way I mark the difference between mental self-care and emotional self-care is mental self-care is perhaps more about self-development, what kind of gets your mind going, what stimulates your mind, what is supportive towards your progress as a person. So it could be listening to a podcast, it could be reading a book, it could be there's so many. It could be signing up to a coach. It could be organising a therapy session. Whatever that looks like for you, really supporting your mental self-care is really, really important because it not only incorporates your self-development, but it also really supports your mental health in general as well. And I will touch a little bit more on mental health as I go through the emotional self-care as well, which I will go on to just now. So in respect of your emotional self-care, this is something that is very often missing. And this is something I never truly recognised as being really important when we were engaging in self-care. Years ago, I was definitely one of those cliched people who would fire on a face mask and sit in a bubble bath and call that self-care. whilst absolutely that can be self-care, really being in tune to what you need emotionally and what your mental health truly needs is really, really important when we are looking at incorporating self-care into our everyday life. One that I really love to do is to journal. So every single morning before I get out of bed, I sit for probably about 15-20 minutes and I journal. So I tend to write 10 gratitudes, so 10 things that I'm really grateful for every single day. I sometimes reflect on the day before, I sometimes reflect on the day ahead, or sometimes I'm really just focused on my overall life and things that I'm truly grateful for. I also really like to explain why I'm grateful as well, because that really enhances that kind of emotional connection that you have with things that are going on in your life just now. Another thing I like to do is just do a brain dump. So if I'm going through challenges, if I'm going through difficulties, quite often I will want to write about it or type about it somewhere safe where I can really offload. Alternatively, something that can be really supportive for your emotional health is just taking some time out. So this once again could incorporate with your social self-care, it could also incorporate with your mental self-care, but sometimes just taking a bit of time out to really give yourself that time to recognise what is truly going on for you right now can be really, really beneficial. An example of that could be meditation, which I will come on to next, because all of these self-cares, I would argue, are so interlinked. They're not black and white, they're not specifically divided, because there will be aspects of all of these different types of self-care when you are engaging in these 5 types. So lastly, the one I wanted to cover was spirituality. Now, some people don't align with this last one because they maybe don't identify with a specific faith or belief system. That is okay if you don't connect with this last one. But for those who do, what does your spiritual self-care look like? Is it a case of you go to church? Is it a case of you sit and meditate and really tune into your spiritual guides? Is it a case of you spend time praying? I identify as being very spiritual, so what I quite often do is I write letters to the universe. I will meditate, I will really sink into any messages that I feel I need, and really looking out for those spiritual signs. I also do things like angel cards, oracle cards, just when I'm looking for specific guidance. Another example is crystals. So whether you use crystals or not, they're a really great way to incorporate your spiritual self-care because you feel just a bit more connected when you are using crystals. I'm gonna leave that crystal comment I'm gonna leave it to be quite ambiguous because there's so much stuff I can talk about in terms of crystals, so I will come back to that maybe in another episode. So that's the 5 ways to engage in regular self-care. I am going to do a part 2. I did mention that I will be looking to do to drop some sort of tips and tricks on how to stick to your self-care routine. So I'm going to do that as a part 2 because I want to make sure that I'm not rushing through it and I'm giving it the best sort of attention it truly needs, because this is really important stuff. Engaging in self-care can literally change your life because you are going to be so much more focused on your mental health, your physical health, your social life, your spirituality, and your emotional health as well. I can't wait to do a part 2, and I look forward to connecting with all of you again soon. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Turning Moments into Movements. Why not check out coaching opportunities with me so you can really begin to enhance your moments into huge movements and begin to live the life you never thought possible. Details are in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, leave a review and share this episode. Remember to also follow me on social media platforms through my handle Happyluya, where you will receive additional daily content. And finally, make sure you join us next week for more tips on how you can turn your small moments into life-changing movements.